to go. But yeah, welcome to Friday morning, everybody. We got some really cool stuff today to talk about, important stuff to talk about, as we always do on The World From Here. So we're excited to get started. Let's kick it off and talk about NFTs, Dan. Let's talk about what all the hype, controversy, opinions, like it's all there. It's like the perfect storm of influencers meet crypto bros, meet, enterprise, meet cash grab, meet infrastructure. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, it's awesome. The dinner conversation, you go out for a happy hour, which is the first one I've had in quite some time last week. But for some reason, somebody said something about NFTs. So obviously I had something to say about it. And then certain people said, I hate NFTs. And they said, and I asked them, well, have you ever purchased one? No. Well, why do you hate them so much then? Yeah. And then we got into the whole conversation about what good NFTs can do, with people donating for causes and other things. And then I shared what the NFTs of the future are going to be, what we're going to talk about here today. And most people are blown away, kind of like a client that we had yesterday. We're talking
my question always to people, and they tell me, hey, you need to look at this about NFTs, good or bad. First question I ask is, do you know how to spell it?
Is that with an apostrophe S or just an
right? NFT. Let's talk about it. Let's get into it. So there's a lot of opinions out there about NFTs, and there's a lot of hype and a lot of interesting kind of knowledge that you can gain about this new technology. And I think that it's kind of obvious. Hey, you know what? There's never going to be a video phone, Dan. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Oh. So at the end of the day, this is new technology. This is Harvard back in November 2021. How NFTs create value. All you got to do in our world today, what you need to do is filter through the information and have kind of a logical way of doing that and seeing, what are the cliff notes I want to take away? And before, too many people want to form this opinion before they actually understand how to spell something as obvious as NFT. Like, what does it mean? So we could dig into the code and so forth, but let's dig into the news and let's talk about it. So here's an article, a couple, 4 or 5 months ago from Harvard. And, they published it. They were confident enough to publish how they create value. You can read that. Then you can go look at this guy. And this guy always gives us something to talk about, right?
Always.
The president and CEO and founder of Meta, and he says NFTs are coming to Instagram. So, what does that mean? What does NFTs coming to Instagram mean? And the question is, do we want that? Like,
right. And Tim, this morning I had just a conversation with my daughter who's here and saying what we're going to talk about. And I mentioned that company and she said, ooh, who would trust them? So
right.
At 26-year-old.
That does become the business question, right?
Yes.
And that's kind of the kickoff today, which is, well, okay, we've got this new technology. It's in the zeitgeist of people's minds right now, NFTs. What does it mean? And the reality is, who wants that? I bet a lot of people want that, honestly. But who trusts them is the better question.
Correct.
Definitely. And that is the fundamental business problem, PR problem, legal problem of data that is controlled by this big centralized monolith, Facebook or Meta, right? The idea behind that is data. And today we're going to talk about what NFTs do to data. And we're going to talk about infrastructure. And I'd like to talk about experience. And what are the experiences that have created these markets, these new Web 3.0 technologies and markets, and how are those experiences being captured in what we've seen so far in blockchain, crypto, NFTs, and so forth? What is that experience? And I'm going to make a reference to everybody for a great Netflix show at the end of the this stream here, Dan. So let's talk about that. So Facebook's onto the NFTs, which is great. Great monetization strategy, business strategy. I would too, Mark. Good for you. It's definitely, is it a cash grab? Better be, because I think last year, or in 2020, I think is the last time I have the stat, Facebook did $80 billion in revenue. And this is all after Cambridge Analytica and everything. So let's just put that in perspective.
Right.
Like, who wants that, right? A lot of people, apparently, and $80 billion in revenue, but 98% of that revenue is from ads. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you're running these businesses, these big monolithic businesses, you have to look at, well, what's my revenue stream? How do I diversify that? How do I segment that? What's going to get me more sticky within the customer base that I have? And it comes back to, Web 2.0 versus Web 3.0. And that's the major infrastructure shift. And it's all around us. It's all around us. There's a lot of reasons for it. I'll show a few reasons here in a moment. There's a lot of reasons for it, a lot of talking about the reasons for it, but not very many people are really digging into, well, what were the experiences? Dan, you and I talk about it every day.
Every day.
We talk about it with some of the largest consulting firms in the world, like literally in the world, about what the infrastructure shift is. What does this mean going Web 2.0 to Web 3.0?
Well, and Tim, just to make a quick statement, NFTs, a lot of people think about the perception. It's like the gold rush. Back in the gold rush, any kind of gold rush, you have a perception from the initial things that happen. So people lost money in the gold rush. NFTs, we're going to talk about some of the issues today. So that's the perception. But when you really dig down deep, what we're going to talk about today is what really is an NFT and what really can they do. And that's the exciting thing.
Or blockchain, fundamentally. What's the fundamental shift? NFT is one element. It's one element of what a different coded smart contract token can do. Right. So first, let's get rid of this. How you spell NFT is SMART space CONTRACT, smart contract. Right. These are all smart contracts. Yeah. That's what they are. Now, there are certain problems with the way they're captured or displayed, or the cash grabs out there for NFTs right now. That's early evolution of any technology. No business model associated with technology is perfect. Think of e-commerce when it first came out. And Dan, you said it just the other day. You're like, people are like, I'm never putting my credit card on.
I know, the World Wide Web, because I'm old enough to be a part of that.
I'm never putting my credit card online. Hands up, how many people don't have a credit card online somewhere?
Right.
Right. Like, honestly, it's new technology, and it's the application or the bridge of the business model to the new technology, right?
Right. That was the hands up silent there.
That's right. That's right. So when we get there, we start looking then at what are those problems that have been created. Well, here you go. Even OpenSea, the biggest NFT marketplace out there, is said 80%. Think about that. That's the majority by a long shot of free minted NFTs are fake, plagiarized, or spam. Okay. Thank you for coming clean. Thank you for telling the world that. Now, maybe the next time when something gets stolen, like the Bored Apes, and you get a lawsuit and so forth, out there, it's like a disclaimer. It's like the disclaimer in the car park, right? Lock your vehicle. Right. And we are not responsible for items left in the car. Yeah. I mean, honestly, in my legal classes, when I was in university, in my legal classes, it was the question was, is that a valid contract to say, oh, we're not responsible? We disclaim any responsibility, right?
Right.
And actually, clip or a spoiler alert, next week we're going to talk about XRP, Ripple, the SEC, Swift, and all those things. But
Exactly.
you know, what is the information out there? This whole case around crypto right now that's going to really start defining regulation is about what is the clear message and what really is, what are the rules? What are the rules of engagement, right?
Yeah.
So,
and Tim, there's just two things from what you just shared. I just don't want everyone to think that 80% of everything on the blockchain, is fake and fraud, et cetera, because as you said yesterday in one of our calls, Bitcoin has never been hacked. The blockchain is secure. And I just want to make a point that it's all about the authentication we're going to talk about. And it's about the on-ramps and off-ramps. How do you get onto the blockchain? And, where are you going first? And, that's where fraud happens. So
right. And it's also the technology side of it. So
right.
what was Bitcoin designed for and what did it prove? Too many people get hung up on the fact that Bitcoin has this huge value out there of $70,000 or whatever it's hit at the peak, right? But they forget that what it was there to prove is we could reinvent the way we did money.
Right.
Right. Now, in any reinvention, there is latency of how that invention comes out and is utilized best, right? There are really efficient things about it if it catches on. There are really inefficient things about it. So the inefficiency we hear about, mining, energy consumption, the inefficiency of aggregating all these servers and then having whales centralize a decentralized model, which is exactly what's happening in technology right now. Just go look at it. Salesforce is working on NFTs.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
many companies are, but they don't have the blockchain piece or the authentication piece.
Centralized business model
right.
trying to centralize decentralization. Right.
Right.
So these technologies, which is really important in the way technologies are created, who's creating them? What is their business objective or their technical objective at the time? And those objectives shift. They shift daily, weekly, their priority, goals based, and things like that. Whether you're a developer and you're running at a target to hit, or you're a business running at a target to hit, you have a goal. Now, if you look at something like Solana, you look at some of these other ones, their goal is speed up the network.
Right.
So where do I need speed? Like, where do I really need to be a supercar? We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Where do I need to be a supercar versus where is it okay to be a semi truck transporting goods and services? You don't go fast. In fact, I'm on the highway. I don't want you to go fast.
Right.
Right. I want you to be a safe driver. Is speed the primary motivation of that truck? Or, if you got Michael's car, you're flying by that guy at 140 miles per hour and it's fun. But it's not fun to see a semi coming at you that has lost its air brakes going down where you lived in Loveland Pass.
Yeah, Loveland Pass.
And where I grew up, Colorado, you see this, Dan can relate to this, but there's all these off ramps that go straight up a mountain, like literally straight up a mountain. And the reason those are there is if these semis lose their brakes, the drivers are supposed to go up that hill and into these sand bins.
Sand bins with 6 inches of rocks.
Hopefully that guy won't get killed, but for sure you don't want him knocking a bunch of cars off the mountainside like little like a bowling ball, right? Knocking down pins. So when we look at technology, it's exactly that. What is your objective? Our objective at BlockCerts and all along with blockchain has been build the infrastructure based on real system transformation.
Right. And one thing we pointed out last week, or I pointed out, was just how you saw the decoupling that would be needed from price on transactions and price of the actual token. So Bitcoin or Ethereum with gas, with Ethereum, when Ethereum price goes up, the transaction becomes way too expensive because those are coupled. And as you just said, what are some of the objectives for Ethereum? It's to decouple that.
Well, and so Tim's book recommendation for the week is called The Innovators by Walter Isaacson. Isaacson's the guy who wrote Steve Jobs, he wrote Einstein, he wrote all of that. And if you look at Isaacson and you read that, it's just fascinating. By the way, shout out, it's International Women's Month. We're going to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we're going to talk about, Beyond Pink. And
programmer, first programmer was Ada Lovelace. Go read the book. I'm not going to tell you the history of programming and coding and iterations, but this whole world that we live in, what we talk about, what I've done for the last several decades, and what BlockCerts is about is iterative. It's all iterative. And it doesn't matter if it's Apple, Microsoft, Google, Ethereum, Bitcoin, XR, it doesn't matter. It's all iterations of the next version. And what's the focus? So what is the focus of NFTs? And what is our focus when we said, yeah, let's get some NFT stuff going at BlockCerts? Our focus was infrastructure. Frankly, it wasn't being the biggest hype guys out there. It wasn't being the biggest cash grab out there. It was infrastructure. Why? Because infrastructure lasts a very long time. Spoiler alert again, SWIFT, what the sanctions for the Russians right now, what we're going to hear about with XRP and Wells Fargo and what's happening with SWIFT, 1972. That's when it started. Very long-term thinking and very long-term technology. Incredibly multi-trillion dollar businesses. So if you look at that, again, lots of opinions out here, NFTs, new fraud targets, how they can be created for fraud. Something in this article, which is really interesting, is this idea of wash trading, which has been around forever, by the way. Wash trading, which is a group of traders get together, run the price up, make it look like there's a bunch of liquidity and demand, and then exit to the greatest fool who isn't on the inside track.
Sounds like something we witnessed in the early 80s with penny stocks.
Penny stocks, exactly, the penny stock market. So there's another recommendation. Go watch The Wolf of Wall Street.
That's right.
I mean, DiCaprio does a great job in it, right? Yeah. And we'll talk about The Big Short here in a minute. And we'll talk about how NFTs are all about that. Like, this is the authentication. So let's just kind of jump into that, Dan. Let's jump in to what authentication means and the authentication blockchain. Okay. So we've launched NFT Certain. I'll go back to the beginning. And if you just watch our banners here, if you click on our video, we tell you what our strategic focus is. We tell you what NFT Certain means. We tell you what the goal is. The goal is to authenticate sellers and buyers in critical areas. Now, you know, when we've got a multi-million dollar vehicle collection and they want to do some NFTs, digital NFTs, and then run that so it can become really cool. And the stuff that I can't even talk about right now is super exciting with Supercar Driven, where it's going to go. But the point is, we're starting with digital art tied into a real VIN number, and it's authenticated. And that buyer is authenticated, the buyer of the owner of the actual vehicle who commissioned the artwork. And the artwork, therefore, is embedding that into the NFT. Now I know I've got this authentic NFT, right? I've got this authentic thing. We talk about another one, which is business. There's a business NFT. We're launching that in April, where every business protects its IP, even down to what it's creating with an NFT. How do you do that? Infrastructure.
Right.
And this week or this month, because it's International Women's Month, we're launching authentication, NFT, ID protection, all of that for Beyond Pink in one of the biggest markets in the world, which is India. And I'm super excited about that, the Diverse Women's Project.
Yeah. And that's so exciting, Tim. We've been working with Dr. Bindu. We're going to talk more about it another time. But It's exciting because they have a new app that helps women to get into business, to help women to do what they want to do versus to continue with the norms of what are there for women in many places in the world.
What the social stigma and social dogma is about women working, and women working in particular in countries that don't necessarily have a culture of favoring that.
Right. 200 million women in India. That this is just an awesome project.
Yeah.
And
so if you look at it, roughly the size of the United States.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
And what's really great about authentication, if you can authenticate, anything, we're talking about real businesses, real products, and real tracking all the way through a process. And that goes to your point about a platform and something that lasts.
That's right. And it goes to the point of what we talked about earlier. Who would trust them? Okay. Right. So blockchain has this nuance in it that's always been there called trustless.
Yeah.
The answer is nobody should trust them. You shouldn't have to.
Right.
If you have authentication, it is trustless. If you have the blockchain, it is trustless. The question then becomes, how do I obfuscate? How do I protect my assets, identity, whatever I want to protect? My data. It's my data. It's not yours, Mark. It's mine.
Right.
Now, if I want to use your stuff, Google, I love using your stuff. I don't care that you track me, because you know what? When I'm out looking for sailboat parts, or I'm out looking for overlander parts or stuff like that, I love the recommendations Google gives me. I love it.
Yeah.
And I don't care if I'm a sailor or I love to go out in nature, and I get great recommendations that way. It's powerful. There's certain stuff I don't want you to know.
Right.
It should be my choice.
Your choice. Yeah. That's the point, is you should have the choice in the matter.
And if you read current regulations, GDPR in Europe being the biggest one, California's got it too. That's what they're saying. They're saying, like, look, give them the choice. I don't want to have to look at that little pop-up that says accept all cookies, configure my cookies. Who's going to take the time to configure their cookies? What about you, Mr. Business, don't know who I am for a moment? Let's just assume this. You don't know who I am, but I know who I am, and I know what I'm qualified for. Can you say mortgages? I know what I'm qualified for. And I will tell you, after you tell me what you got to offer, I will tell you if I'm going to buy it.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you whether I want to give you my information so that you can give that to 3 different mortgage companies, or better than that, show me the information so I can choose.
Yeah, it's like the old Jerry Maguire. Show me the money, right?
That's right.
You show me, then I'll tell you if I'm going to show you.
Right.
And that's the big shift. So why don't companies want that? Why don't they? Because there's so much power in knowing this ahead of the market. There's so much power in knowing who Dan is.
Right.
But you know what? Are you a lead, Dan? Is that what you are? Is that what you want to be? Do you want to be a lead?
No, but that's what I've been for 20 or 30 years.
Your whole life, ever since this internet thing started.
Right.
Before it was, and you're a marketing guy, chief marketing officer, before it was put the ads out there and see who contacts us.
Right.
Now, and that was concierge marketing. That was, hey, please come and visit us for X.
That was shotgun marketing versus very narrowly focused.
Very narrowly focused, which is, I know psychologically what you're going to do next, and I'm going to encourage you to do more of it.
Yeah.
This is some of the problems with news and media, and this is all the stuff that people are in an uproar about, of how data is being used, right? So it's pretty structural, and it's that infrastructure thing of how do we change that. So speaking of infrastructure, then if that's NFT certain and what we're doing, how are we changing it? Well, we're doing this. We're saying, well, start out in our beta program, join our beta, and we're going to do an airdrop, because everything happens with a token. Tokens are 2-sided coins, and that pun is intended. It's a 2-sided coin. So far, what we've seen in blockchain is a 1-sided coin. we've seen crypto trading and value and speculation. That's it.
Right.
Okay. But the second side of that is it's actually software that can carry these protocols and authentications with it, and every person can hold the key to it. Now that's the fundamental shift. So going back to what you said, Dan, no Bitcoin has ever been replicated. It's only been created through proof of work, which is more and more difficult, that requires this massive computing power.
Right.
So we're going to explain how we take the world's massive computing power at BlockCerts and don't consume one more bit of energy than they're going to consume anyway.
Right.
Zero carbon footprint at BlockCerts. That was one of our goals, right? Then secondly, how do we get the world authenticated? Well, what we're starting with NFT Certain is join the beta program. We'll give you $30 worth of BCert tokens free. You're going to go in, if you do a few things, authenticate yourself, put up 2FA, and create your vault. All things, by the way, that give you control. We're going to let you do it for free, but we have to give you tokens to do it.
Yeah,
because that's how you create your public and private keys. But these are yours. We're not asking for anything, so we're going to give that to you. Then when we launch, and you can trust whoever did this artwork, whoever is behind this, you'll know who the CEOs are. If there's a CEO, you'll know who the artist is. You might not know exactly who they are. They may choose to work under a pseudonym like Everest here, who did this.
Right. The big question of, who Everest is, which the mystery is part of the fun.
Well, who's Banksy?
Yeah.
Who's Satoshi?
Right.
Right. But is it real? Did Satoshi, whoever that is, either an individual or a group, create something real? Is Bitcoin real? Does it exist? Does it do something in the marketplace? Obviously it does.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
And to that point, the only time when we hear about Bitcoin where there's fraud or issues are if you've lost your private key or, something on the front end, the on-ramp. It's not the blockchain. It's not Bitcoin. It's not, the way that the blockchain is hashed together and linked together. It's something on the front end. And that's where if you can resolve the front end with authentication, with the vault and 2FA, two-factor authentication, you're on the blockchain and you've taken care of the last mile and the first mile.
And we've removed a lot of the geek stuff out of the blockchain crypto speak. We've worked hard and we continue to work hard every day so people can easily access this in their daily lives, so they don't have to have this speak of what's the geek speak, what's the crypto bros talking about, and and they can actually spell hold properly.
Yeah, versus hodl.
Versus
hold on for dear life.
Yeah. So
and then also you don't have to have crypto to get involved in NFTs any longer. You can use a credit card. There are many different payment forms,
because it's the bridge between what we have today. Infrastructure is always a bridge. Right. It will always be a bridge. It may be the tightrope between two skyscrapers like the Great Walinda's Walk, but it's a bridge, and you connect things, and that's the iterative approach to developing something that's going to last. And then eventually you start getting the things right. And that's what we use today in technology, is the things that were gotten right. And that's why these big companies that exist today have a lot of stuff right and some stuff wrong, some stuff that just needs to shift into the new model. Now, how they approach that's the mindset within those organizations. Right. So there's a lot of opinions out there on it. There's this one just blew me away. There's a podcast called Line Goes Up, and look at this, 6,491,000 views, right? And it's 2 hours long. And it talks about, starts out with the story of the 2008 meltdown.
Yeah.
And it's really well done. But the underlying thing that I didn't hear is Well, the way that all got out of control back in 2008 was fraud, frankly.
Right.
And it was fraud perpetrated mainly by mortgage bankers, mortgage brokers.
Right.
And what they would do is they would go out and take these applications, change things. Maybe we'll get our mortgage banker who's in the industry for 30 years, who's our chief operating officer, Robert. Hey, Robert, shout out to you, to get on here and actually validate this. He went through billions of dollars of this. And his biggest concern was, are these real mortgages, or did somebody change something on the tax form or this so that the broker could get a commission? Right. Because brokers knew how to game the system. The bankers took that at mass and started rating these mortgages. And then the rest of it was, there were all the models that are talked about well in this podcast. The line goes up, and he talks a lot about how they made money, but the infrastructure piece was missing. What started the engine of being able to create that giant meltdown?
Right. And yet, when you think, Tim, of technology, it's still not existent in the mortgage industry. How clunky it is to have a notary have to take a picture of a driver's license and sign in a little book versus really doing a background check. Really,
well, all the things, there's just, it's just line after line. It's a complex process, Dan.
Yes. Yeah.
And so then you can take this into, you can take it into technology. So then the next part of this 2-hour podcast is, well, where are these guys' heads that are innovating this technology, and who's really behind it, and who's profiting from it, and so forth? All very valid points, incredibly valid points. But again, the underlying infrastructure of, well, what would you do with this kind of technology if it were put to proper use, or it were engineered with that mindset in the first place to actually solve those problems? And you brought this up earlier, Dan, of when I looked at Ethereum in 2015 and 2016, I said, it's not gonna work that way. And when I looked at Bitcoin in 2013, I'm like, not gonna work. But blockchain and AI and how these engines evolve, there's no question it's going to shift infrastructure. That was my mindset for now almost a decade. It's hard to believe, almost a decade since I really dug in and started looking at all of these. And actually 2015, when I got my patent granted, I wrote the patent in 2011. Right. And, it was all called process flow chains and interactions between social media and things like that. And this secure virtual space technology. So I've been thinking about this for a very long time, this infrastructure, from my backstory, like things that actually affected me. So that's the experience piece. Right. So I think experience and infrastructure and where your mindset is really what defines how you spell things like NFT.
Yeah, right? For sure. And the YouTube video you're talking about, that Don Olson, he did an awesome job of framing up what is today, but I think going further of what could be, and that's what we're talking about. What is today without authentication, there are pitfalls. But if you have authentication and you have the platform, it's something that will benefit every business.
Well, what's the fundamental that you're looking
for? It's the fundamentals. Whether you're tracking olive oil or
and back to Bitcoin again, or blockchain in general, and Merkle trees. What was the fundamental? What's the fundamental behind a proof of work authentication? And what does that actually mean to me as a user? If it's easy to use and I'm more secure and I've got more control of my data and I got more control of my software, and I don't get locked out because I decided I don't want to pay a monthly fee or whatever. Right. All of a sudden, do I have more control? And is it better than what we have today? That's for each individual answer. I think it is. I think it's better. I like having more control over my life, especially my digital life. But
and also control of cost as well, because there are big cost factors as a part of this as well.
Do businesses want more control over that, or do they want companies to get them into the sticky customer mindset and run these things down? So this is another way of thinking of it. Why more and more companies are embracing Web 3.0. And so this was written in Entrepreneur magazine. Then we have the H3 podcast. I mean, you can just go look. And there you go. These guys talking about what is ridiculous about this. I actually love this stuff. It's incredibly entertaining. It's incredibly insightful to what's going on today. And I'm glad to see these diatribes coming out about blockchain and things like that. And the reason I'm glad is way back in 2018, I did this keynote talk at the Intellectual Property Institute of Canada, the 92nd annual conference. And you know what, Dan? It was back then that I was saying, well, how do we give individuals identity? You can find this on YouTube probably. And how do we give individuals identity, and how do we give them ownership of their property? 2018, right? Yeah. And all of that kind of boils back down to what can be done. So we have to look at what can be done and what is architected, what we've architected at BlockCerts. That's where our mindset was, to build infrastructure, to create the authenticated blockchain and give that to the tools we use every day, to the things we all use every day, whether it be a mobile device, a payment, a business tool, what have you, right?
Yeah. And Tim, 5 or 6 years ago, did you ever think that blockchain and what we're doing would become pop culture like what you were just showing?
It's pretty phenomenal. 5 or 6 years ago, I didn't even know if we could do this.
Right.
So I have to make this massive shout out to my team and the teams I've worked with over the last half a decade, and even teams that came before that were the real kind of foundation of this. Guys, we pulled it off. Like, this works. It's just, I wake up and pinch myself every morning. I'm like, wow. I was going through logs Tuesday, looking at stuff that we were doing in 2017 and saying, oh, wow, that's where that delay came from. Right?
Wow, we did that. And it's
and I can see all the way back now historically of why something worked, why something didn't, where a delay came from, and who did it.
Right.
Like, who was involved, and like, what business doesn't want that? Like, supply chain, like, I mean, you just go on and on and on and on. So it's super exciting. So thanks, teams. And it's been a great journey, and I'm super excited because today, it may not be obvious, but we're launching NFT Certain today.
We are. I know.
We're getting this airdrop out so people have some authentication models. You have to get the tokens, but you get a coupon. It's free. Go in, do it. Yeah, we're working through the operational delivery processes. Bear with us. Become part of our beta. Tell us what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong. That's what we're doing. I know we went over, Dan, so I want to kind of just add a few more things. Who cares? Like, at the end of the day, who cares? And who's saying stuff that that is this important or isn't it? And one of my places that I spent a lot of time, and I'm really happy I did, is MIT. They're doing a digital business strategy short course. I love this quote. If companies get the mind-machine balance wrong, 2 bad things will happen. Spoiler alert, go watch the video. Go find out what the 2 bad things are. I personally think it's going to be a lot more than 2 bad things, but bad things will happen. I think we can agree on that.
Yeah, and there are always bumps in roads, but roads become paved because of the work that others do, and I just look at the projects we have going on, whether they're rare coins, they're things that are biblical in nature, like some really impressive things that are happening because there are real businesses with real products and real assets that now can be tracked, that now can be delivered, and eliminate the fraud component of it. There's a whole new world out there that we're now launching with NFT Certain.
Exactly. And the operative statement behind what that trailer for MIT's course says is if. If. That's the operative statement. And there are a host of big guys out there saying, well, let's answer that if. Let's answer that if for the business leaders. We're answering that if with our program called Trustonomics. How do you build or rebuild trust into your model as you're making that infrastructure shift? How do you get the, as you said, pop culture out there to trust that these are real, valid technologies? Those are all very real, valid, real world questions that are going to be answered. That's why it's critical to match thinking, business models, and technology. Because answer this for me, Dan. What business model doesn't include technology today?
None that are successful.
I mean, you know, everything from your local restaurant to who has to now take a COVID passport maybe or something like that, to your mindset on, I mean, your services, to, as you said, digital notaries, to whatever. What doesn't use some form of technology?
For sure.
Message.
Yeah. And back to your point about Swift, if you build it and you build a platform where you've thought things through, that's for the long run, it's amazing what will happen through that.
That's right. So to summarize, NFTs are about thinking differently, taking the problems we face today, the technology we face today, and solving it with an iteration that changes our level of thinking on many platforms: the business platform, the application platform, the what the heck am I going to use this thing for platform, the competitive platform, the shift in my business model, my career, my monetization model, my data privacy model. All of those things are thinking. And all of that is kind of this quantum that technology is based on. So great show to watch about how code is done and about AI and things like that. And where we're headed is called Coded Bias. You can see it on Netflix, I believe. And I love this. Thought-provoking, serves as both a wake-up call and a call to action. Like, how do coders think when they're creating these machines that ultimately are going to give us recommendations and think for us or collaborate with us? Remember what the MIT thing said. How or if we get it wrong, we are going to have these problems.
Right.
And I wouldn't say we're getting it. I think what we've gotten today is, I don't think we've gotten it wrong. I think we've hit this massive inflection point that's going to define what the future is. So let's make our if go the right way for us.
Yeah. Well,
and that's
with
it.
the right platform, the authentication, the if can go a long ways.
So my recommendation for today is spell NFT properly.
Right. And away we go. So check us out, NFTcertain.com, and give us a thumbs up, and please join and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And we thank you for being with us. We went a little over today. I'll give a big couple claps on our platform here. Nice job, Tim. And
thank you. And thank you, everybody. And again, next week, we're going to talk about this whole next infrastructure shift, which is what actually is happening out there with cryptocurrencies and Swift and those kinds of things, and maybe some other interesting stuff because it pops up every week. So thank you, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay Web 3.0 digital. Get Web 3.0 digital.
I know. Get it in your life. Thanks, guys.
And have a great weekend.
All right. Bye.